Stories of Substance is an educational theater company. It's based on a program that I ran at Stony Brook University for many years. It's real stories related to young adults that we bring to life by a group of trained actors. A majority of the stories have to do with alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, because for many years that was the focus of the program when I was, doing it on campus. But now we're growing into many more different topics. It includes domestic violence and eating disorders and computer addiction and MySpace.
Well, originally the program started at Stony Brook University under Kathleen Flynn Bisson about 15 years ago. She started it. Recently in August, she has started her own company called SOS, Stories of Substance. And what we do is we take real stories from people that are submitted anonymously. We take those stories and we put it into the context of a scene.
I joined the group because I had seen the program in 2003 at my high school, at Massapequa High School. And I thought it was amazing. It resonated within me. And it turned out they were from Stony Brook University. So when I went to Stony Brook University, I wound up joining the program there.
The training that the students get is that they're trained to be a peer educator. So they're giving all the content about alcohol and other drugs and depression and suicide and eating disorders. They're giving all of that content, but they're also given extensive theatrical training.
Well, I was a freshman in college and I saw the show and it was funny, it was entertaining, and I learned a lot, and I tried out, not think I would get it, and I did, and it really did change my college experience.
What had happened many years ago when I started out as in health education, I had gone to a conference, I had seen something similar about using real stories in theater. I came back to the university that I was working at the time and I said, we have to do this here. So what I did is I met with the theater department and I said, how do we do this? And it progressed from there. That was in 1995. And it became a course and students are trained, and then it grew, and the initial goal was to just educate the students on campus. Once the word got out and they could see how powerful it was, we started to go off campus.
I love being in this group, this organization, because I was a theater major, so I love acting, I love being on stage, I love performing. But also, I started this 3 years ago. The feedback that I got from the students, certain people will come up to me afterwards and just tell me how they related to certain scenes and how this really helped them.
One, it's theater, which the audience feels the information before they think about it. Especially when you're dealing with young adults, you want to get them to get past that "not me" or "could never happen to me," and if they feel it and they have that impact, they tend to hear the information.
What I find most rewarding about the show is after it's all done, when you have one specific person that comes up to you and says, you were in the scene that dealt with family alcoholism or domestic violence, and they say, the same thing happened to me and it really touched me, and they almost have like an emotional moment right there, and it's just a perfect stranger that has no problem sharing that with you because they're in that same situation, and to know that you've affected somebody like that is just amazing.
One of the other reasons why it works so well is that it's based on actual things that have happened. So it also goes around that whole thinking of, oh, this could never happen, because it's based on things that have.
Like not too long ago, we were performed at a high school, and a freshman, a 14-year-old girl came up to us and she said, I blacked out 2 years ago. So she was no older than 12 when she started experiencing these things, and they relate to us. And I just feel like even though I'm having a great time when I'm on stage, having fun, working with my friends, I'm impacting people too, and I'm helping, and I enjoy doing that.
I think the third component that makes it so successful is that it's young adults teaching young adults.
This is good because we have so much fun doing it, and we teach others about things that they might not know about. We educate the youth of America while still entertaining them, and that's what I really like about it. Being an actor, I like to get together, and make these scenes and find out what's pertinent and new issues in the communities, just to bring it back to them so we can bring them up. And I like the fact that it changes, the cast changes, so that it gives other people a chance to come and experience what we've already experienced.
Peer education is one of the most magnificent forms of education because they can really relate to it. As you saw in some of the scenes today, some of the wording that they use and some of the expressions that they use. I'd like to tend to believe I'm up with the times, but not really. They do that.
This generation is quite different. It's evolving, and the younger kids are, the more they're experimenting with drugs and alcohol and smoking, and the heroin rates are going sky high right now these past couple of years. and they just don't understand. They think it's the cool thing to do, and they don't understand, and they don't see the consequences because they're still young and they're still living under their parents, and they just don't get that sense of what could happen to me if something wrong happens.
There's usually anywhere between 10 and 12 scenes or skits. It always includes information about family alcoholism. It always includes information about alcohol overdose. There's always specific things that it includes, but depending on what's going on, like I would believe some of the scenes that will be coming will have to do with heroin, because that is something that is absolutely affecting our youth right now. So it depends on what is happening in the world. Like one of the scenes in our show right now has to do with gaming and gaming addiction. That the fact that there are young adults who are on the computer to the level that it's truly affecting their lives.
People don't really think that students or people can be addicted to video games. They just think that it can only be substances. But a lot of times people are addicted to video games or Facebook or the internet or anything like that. So it's kind of an interesting scene because there's 4 people on stage, and each person represents a different stage in the addiction or dependency cycle. So like the first person was just a user. They were just using the video games, the substance. And they weren't addicted to it at all. They were just using it. It was totally healthy. The second person is abuse, and so they were, at times they were maybe using it in a bad way, but they weren't, it was still fine. The third person who left was misusing it, so that's further on the cycle. And the last person was completely dependent on the substance, the video games, and so they were, you could see that at the end that they missed their midterm, and so it's kind of interesting. I really like that scene, especially in the middle and high schools when we do it. We get a lot of feedback for it because a lot of the kids are in the same position. So
we kind of use topics that are happening in the world, but they always relate back to making a healthy choice. I think one of the messages of the troupe, especially the actors, is the whole idea that put the information out there so you can make a healthy choice. We don't get into no, even though some of the audiences we present to, we know they're under 21, we know that there are definitely some things they should be saying no to, but I think that shuts off the audience when you start with no, where here it is, make a choice.